This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 260.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I have a good friend of mine on the show, someone that I've been working with for almost a year. He is a client of mine, full disclosure. He'll actually mention that at the beginning of the show, so I'll mention it here as well. He is a client of mine. He came to me before he became an SE, and we worked together for him to achieve his goals. He was one of my first clients, so I'm very thankful for him, and I've been through his journey. So I really enjoyed working with him. His name is Raj Thakore, and he's been doing well as an SE. I wanted him to come on and talk about his challenges, his experiences, because he went through things as he was looking for an SE job. Looking for an SE job, no matter who tells you, is not easy. If you get a boot camp, whatever service you choose, if you choose to use a service, whether you do it on your own, and it's doable on your own, many people have done it before. Many people will continue to do it after. It's tough. It is a lot of work. Sometimes a lot of heartache. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you get unlucky. So I'm happy to have Raj on the show to go through his experience because he has kind of a moderate experience. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too good. And then we're going to talk about what he's learned, why he loves it, if he still loves it. Was it a good choice? Because everybody wants to be an SE, but no one knows until they try. So was it a good choice for him? And we'll go from there. I will see you after the show. For the fifth time today, Raj, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Ramsey?
I am doing well. I'm happy to have you here finally. We've been talking for a long time, so I'm glad you're here. Now, I know you, and I'm sure some other people know you. But for those who don't, who are you? What do you do? Where did you come from? Why are you here? Yeah. Go.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Raj Thakore. I'm one of Ramsey's students, one of his mentees. And, I'm lucky to be here today to talk a little bit about my journey on being a sales engineer. And so I worked in defense for about 6 years out of college. I graduated back in 2017, and I'm out here based out of the Philadelphia area. And I've primarily worked in the cybersecurity realm as a systems engineer. And I had a really good friend of mine who works in the tech industry. And one day we were out on vacation, and I'm explaining to him what I wanted to do from a long-term future goal perspective. And he identified to me that I should pursue going into becoming a sales engineer. And it's crazy. I thought about it and I let it go after vacation. A few weeks go by, he's catching up with me and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm out here just wondering what I want to do with my career. And I finally gave it some thought, and then I started taking a look into what sales engineers do. And fast forward a few months, I discover Ramsey on YouTube, and the rest is history. And I'm now a sales engineer.
You're that one viewer on YouTube. All right, cool. Good to know. All right, several questions. Well, one, thank you for the plug. I appreciate that. If anybody wants help, I see a hotline or connect with me. I'm happy to help. Systems engineering. When I became a sales engineer, my title was systems engineer. But I understand that systems engineer in your world is different than mine. What did it mean, systems engineer in your world?
Yeah, so if I could even dissect this a little bit more, is I did not know what pre-sales engineering was and what post-sales engineering was. And for the longest time, I've always been in the post-sales world, but I didn't realize that I was doing pre-sales related work while I was in my role. So the role that I was in was where everything was already done from the business point of view. The scope of work was laid on the ground. And me being in the cybersecurity realm, the scope of work was already handed to me. And it's like, "Raj, go do this. This is your project. This is what you have to do from a cybersecurity perspective." And being a systems engineer, I was collaborating with all sorts of engineers, whether they're hardware, software, even finance people, when it came to budgeting. And so what happened with me as a systems engineer was I stumbled upon a project that was going to be more involved and later turned into a proposal. And then being a systems engineer and being on the post-sale side where everything was already sold, and now I'm just executing on it with the customer, I got a chance to work on the pre-sale side, and I didn't even know what pre-sales was until now. I think about what I've been doing, and that's where I get to work on things from ground up, and I get to have some input. And so as a systems engineer, I was not only conducting some of the technical work, but then I also was able to get involved in the beginning of the sale, which in this case was the beginning stages of the project, where I got in touch with subject matter experts. We worked on a proposal. There were requirements. I had to fulfill the requirements with the team that I was on. And so being a systems engineer, most of the time when you're in my industry, you're on the post-sale side, not so much on the pre-sale side. But when you're working with capture managers, you're working on RFPs, that's the pre-sale side.
So just to clarify, you're on the pre-sale side from the buyer's side. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're like on the buyer process more than okay, you worked on it from the other end. And the second question that popped in my head is, you were talking to your friend. He said you should look into pre-sales or sales engineering. Why? Why did he tell that? What did he say that to you?
Well, first, let me say this: leave it to an AE to tell me I should be an SD. What happened was like I was getting to a point where I think some of the work I was doing was starting to become a little repetitive, and I was looking for the next challenge. And so I explained to my friend that I was given an opportunity to be a post-sales engineer. I have a little bit of experience in business development where I can work with requirements. I can work with all sorts of people to put it all together, to present it to a customer. And so I told him that I got the big picture moment in my head. And I always felt like when I was a systems engineer, I was like the afterthought, where it's like everything was already created. Now I just have to execute it. And I was always of the curious mindset where there would be times where a requirement would be given to me and it would be outdated. And then I would be the one who would be upset about it. And I'm like, well, I could have done a better job with requirements had I would have been the person who came up with the proposal and the scope of work. And so I told my friend this, and I said to him that I like business development. I like being technical, but I'm at this point in my life where I don't know like what the next challenge is. Like I could just go in and ride the ladder of being a systems engineer. And he's like, dude, you want to be a sales engineer. He's like, you have, and I was like, well, what's a sales engineer? I've never even heard that. I was like, there's sales and there's engineering. You're making stuff up now. So we're out in Tampa, we're on vacation, just like a guy's getaway, and we're just talking about life. And he told me he was an account executive doing all his fancy schmancy stuff. And so he told me that what I'm doing right now and the experience I have would be aligned with pre-sales. So that's how I got involved in pre-sales. And it all started from that conversation and a few weeks of just pondering about what sales engineering is and where I was. And I was too apprehensive to leave the industry and the role that I was in. So I wanted to find a role that was closer to what I was doing. And, you know, I'm still working in the public sector realm where I'm still working with some of my old customers.
Okay, so you were frustrated with your current role because you were working on legacy products. It wasn't anything new. You felt like you could have done a better job. Why were you still apprehensive about leaving it?
Well, I think it's with anything in life. Like when you know too much or you're too comfortable, you're afraid to challenge yourself. And I think part of that came to the reason why it was so difficult for me to make a quick change and it took me so much time. And then the other thing is too the lack of information there was. And then here's the other thing, right? Naturally, when you're interested in something, you do some research online and you're trying to find prerequisites and such into figuring out if you can get into this role or whatever the case may be. And so things were hazy to me. I didn't really have much at the time when I was getting introduced to this information that would get me into it. And it took a few months of just like trying to understand before I put pen to paper. And then I was introduced to your channel, and then we met. So I think it's just natural, like just trying new things. Sometimes you're apprehensive to it, or you're just too comfortable with where you're at and you don't want to make the move. But I'm glad I made the move now.
Good. Tell me about the journey to get into sales engineering. I remember we worked on it, but
Yeah.
from your perspective, can you share a
Yeah,
little?
no, yeah, absolutely. I would love to share it. The first thing is if you're in the defense industry or you're even a government civilian person, and you're a systems engineer, you're already most likely a post-sales engineer. And when you're working on proposals, you're working on the next latest and greatest technology, and you're working with a group of people, you're probably doing a little bit of pre-sales too, and you don't know it, because pre-sales and post-sales are not words that are used in the defense industry. I think it's more or so used on the commercial side. And so that's one reason why I was very even hesitant to even move this into this direction, because it was so new. I've never met any sales engineers. And when I was a contractor working with the military and we met these software companies that were coming to us, they never told us they were sales engineers. They just told us they were solutions engineers or whatever. The words are intertwined. I had no idea. And so what happened was, about December of 21 was when I finally had enough of it. Pandemic hit. I come back from my ski vacation. And then I come up with like my New Year's goals, and I was like, I really need to hold myself accountable. I need to do something. So the first thing I did is just to get it out the door is I revamped my resume and didn't ask anyone for help. I tried to figure it out, and then I tried to match it along with how pre-sales was, given the little bit of information I had and going on YouTube, looking at different sales engineering roles. And I get out the door, first 10 resumes, no word whatsoever. And then I'm going through the process of, am I even doing things right? Like I'm leaving the government world to going into the private sector. Things are different. So to me, like, I'm just like confused, tired, annoyed, scared, nervous a little bit. And so after those 10 resumes, 2 weeks go by, and then I reach out to you, and then I get that mentorship from you, and you're walking me through the process. I'm holding myself accountable. So what I did is I created a Google Excel spreadsheet. I created all these columns. I added you to it. I added a couple of my friends to it, just so that I could hold myself accountable, and so that they know that I am pushing myself to try something brand new that I've never done. I'm getting help from people left and right. And so the process was 6 months, from January to landing the job in June. I would say for about 4.5 months, it was rinse and repeat. Changing the resume, getting guidance from you, networking with people online, getting rejected, asking for feedback from the people that are rejecting me, and just rinse and repeat until I get into the role that I finally was eligible for. And that was in cybersecurity. Still, and my customer base was still the military and the public sector, federal public sector agencies as well too. And so I have to say, like, it was definitely a process. It was worth it. I love the role I'm in. Not a single day is the same. I embrace the challenge. And I have to say that, like, I think being an SE is like the ultimate goal to be in before the next few goals a few years from now. But like, the process itself requires a lot of guidance, because there's no prereq to get into sales engineering, in my opinion. You can have all sorts of experience, and that's the best part about sales engineering. Some of my peers, they weren't even engineers. They were business people that just so happen to have certain skills that align with what an SE does. And so when you look at this role and like the responsibilities you have with it, and your customers, and how much of an impact you make with an organization, there's a lot going on for this role. And so my journey, it's not the same as it would be for everybody, but I definitely think that I went through the thick of it. But I really appreciate that, because some of the feedback I got throughout my journey of becoming a sales engineer is the reason why I'm here today. And I still use some of those rejections and some of the things they told me on a daily basis to help me improve and become a better sales engineer. But I do have to say, anyone who's trying to get into this role, and you're not, and since I said there's no prereqs to getting into it, I would not give up just because you apply to 10 roles. I have to say, to be very transparent, I think I probably applied to 300 or 400 roles, like in totality, not 300 or 400 companies, but roles. So I was able to get lucky with a couple towards the end of it, once I finally got the grasp of it, was passing with the interviews, and also with the content you have. There's so much content on being a sales engineer now than when I saw like a few months back, and I see a lot of people on YouTube are posting about it. So the journey, I think now would probably be a little bit better for most people that are interested in getting into this realm compared to where I was. But I have to say, there's a ton more resources today than there were yesterday, and I'm excited for the next generation of sales engineers.
I would say yes and no. The journey could be easier, but it also could be harder right now. Maybe 3 months ago.
Given the state of
3 months ago, it would have been very easy. They were just
given the state of where we're at, yes, I agree. But in terms of tools, there are more tools today.
Yeah, I think every generation, or like we talk about generation, my parents think my generation had it easy. I think my kids are going to have it easy, but every generation is going to have its challenges, and the same thing goes for sales engineers. Things will get easier on one side, but because they get easier, now there's more competition, right? So I think there's always going to be some form of challenge that we have to overcome. We overcome one, and then other thing comes along. So I had two questions. Let's start with this one. Throughout your journey, 6 months, 6 months to someone listening to it right now wouldn't say that's a long time, or maybe they do. I don't know. For me, I'm listening to it. It took me like 2 years to get a job. So why did you ever feel like you're gonna give up? And I already know the answer to that. So
absolutely, my confidence was shot. Probably a month into finally like rolling up the sleeves and like putting it down and like letting myself know, like, I want to be a sales engineer. I want to be a sales engineer. I go through the rejections. I finally get my first round interviews, and like from the first round, I keep improving my resume. I keep getting guidance. I look at videos online. Yeah, it was tough because, like I said in the beginning, like when you're about to start something new and like you're so used to doing things one way, like you can easily psych yourself out of doing something, and you know, you need that motivation to keep yourself going, or you need to surround yourself around positivity as well too. And I think I learned a lot from it, because what I did was in order to become an SE, I got rid of the noise that was in my life, the negativity. I surrounded myself around people who wanted to empower me and also who encouraged me to take this leap forward. I talk to my friends about it now who are not sales engineers, but they're leaders in other organizations. And they told me there was no risk for me since the beginning, given where I was at in my life. They're like, you consider it a risk, but they're like, when we look at it, they're like, you should have taken this a while ago if you even knew about it. So I'm glad, knowing what I know now and the people that I surrounded myself around with, I think I would say I made the right decision. It took a lot of coaching, and you could tell me yourself, because there were many times where I was having my down moments, because you have your current job going on, the stresses with that, you have life, and then you have these interviews in between, and then you're getting rejected, and it gets worse as the weeks go by, and like you're getting closer. Like when I first started out, it was just an HR screening. But then past the HR screening, nothing. A few weeks go by. All right, Raj, you're going to have your first round. I get into my first round, and then nothing. Birds are chirping. And then you get through some companies that put you through like this 7 or 8 step process. I get there. I really think I have it. And they give me my feedback, and they're like, yeah, we just don't think that you qualify. And they give me the reasons why. And then, but I was appreciative of the feedback they gave me. It did sting. And then you're wondering, okay, I got to 7 stages with certain companies and I still can't get it. But then they always tell you, hey, Raj, you are an SE, you are an SE. And then I keep telling myself, okay, it's just the shoe didn't fit. And I keep going. And I finally get there. But that was most of the journey. It was just taking it to the chin, lessons learned, holding yourself accountable. That's the big thing. They could take it one way or another. Like you get rejected from a job offer, but sometimes it's not personal. These people just want somebody who could do the job, and if you can work with them. And so there were times where I took it personally, but the thing is I had to let myself know the next day it's fine. There's another day, new opportunity, and you just keep trying, and holding yourself accountable. Like when I was with my spreadsheet, while I was going through the interview process, I wrote down the name. I connected with those people afterwards. And I always wrote down notes to let myself know what I needed to do next, so that I was just in the zone and I was just focusing on that and that only. So yeah, there were many times.
I have a couple of comments. So I'm looking at you from the outside as your coach, I guess. And I felt the expectations were different, right? For you, I think the expectation was you're going to get a job within a few months, like 2-3 months, you'll have a job, right? And you worked like you put in the effort. I remember that you didn't give up, you burned out. You were working so hard on every single thing that it was just too much. And now that we talk about it, it's like, all right, finding a job is more like a marathon than a sprint. You have to consistently keep going. The problem is you're doing the marathon at a very high speed too. So that also doesn't help. And then we learned, like, all right, when you go into the interview, make sure you qualify, make sure that you ask the questions so that if they, in the end, they tell you you're not qualified, you can tell them, we talked about this early on. But then again, you never know. There's always this one person, usually the account manager, who sits back and says, I want someone more experienced. Right? The SE, the sales SE manager would love you. And then the account manager would say, no, I don't want it. And then it'll be very difficult to hire someone, even if you qualified it all the way through. So I think that's the big thing. And I remember talking about this with you, and you're telling me, like, I don't know, should I take a vacation? I'm like, yeah, go take 2 weeks off and don't look at your resume. Don't apply to anything. Just go relax. And I think a month after that, you got a job, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and then I took time off afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely think that if I could pass any words off to anybody who's interested in becoming a sales engineer, whether it's in public sector or just commercial, and like you're going from an engineering background or something that you think is unorthodox, any background to get into sales engineering, I would say that it's great to have a plan, but just because you have a plan doesn't mean it's going to execute correctly. And looking back at it now, I think that some of the things that I probably would have done a better job on is the fact that it's okay, and you can't just expect to get a job within 6 months, but it's good to have an idea like that to keep yourself going. But I wouldn't hold myself to a timeline, but I would also make sure that I have mentors or I have somebody who can coach me throughout the process, because sometimes we get so deep into the weeds and it's like analysis paralysis. Like you work too many hours behind a computer screen, you're like a coder or you're typing a document, like you can get lost in the sauce. And so sometimes you just need other people to coach you through the way of getting through there. They might not necessarily be a sales engineer or a sales engineering leader or whatever the case may be, but I think with this journey, I definitely had the right tools in place. It was just a matter of letting time play itself out.
I mean, you need a good support system. You need someone
absolutely
like who can hear you out and listen to you, right? It doesn't have to be a coach. you said it doesn't have to be an SE, just someone who can actually ask the right questions, right? And that usually helps quite a bit. And like I've had someone get a job within a month. Right, one of my clients got a job within a month, and he got rejected in that month. Like he got rejected and then found a job within 1 month. And I've had people that took 2 years to get a job, right? So we never know. It's just there's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of putting yourself in a lucky position, but there's also a lot of luck. Like you put yourself in lucky positions, but you were just unlucky towards the end of like the last interview where someone says, I want someone who has been an SE for 53 years so that they can come and do the job. But I am curious, like you said, you received a lot of feedback and you took them to heart. Do you remember some of those feedback? Can you share any of those with us?
Yeah, they actually happened to be my customer, which was even more funny. It was funnier in my opinion. So, what happened is this company, they had a standard process, and the process was you meet with HR or the talent acquisition person, then that person guides you throughout the entire process. So you meet with the hiring manager, you meet with an SE, you meet with an account manager, an account executive, you meet with the director, and then you meet with a few more senior folk. And then towards the end of it, after you're done with that, and these are 1-by-1 interviews, by the way. So like the interview process could be anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks.
I've seen it happen in 3 months. I've seen interview processes take 3 months.
Oh, I know the big tech companies. From what I heard, yeah, they'll be even longer. So anyways, the last stage is a mock sales engineering type of scenario where they'll decide the scenario for you. But in my case, they gave me a scenario, and then what they told me is they're going to give me slides, and I can alter the slides, tailor them however I wanted to. But then on top of that, I'm going to have to do a demo from scratch that falls in line with that situation. So they gave me enough time, and man, was I sweating bullets. I had to understand how to use their tool. They were my customer, but I was in that process where I only knew how to operate that tool from a analyst perspective and not really like a system administrator or a security guy. So I had to kind of learn it really quickly and then also spin it out. Now, I did receive help too. I emailed that hiring manager and I asked for help and input. I had him review it with me before I actually did the presentation, which was awesome. And then when I met with the sales engineer throughout the interview process, he told me I can reach out to him as well too, if I wanted some guidance on how to go about it. So I did. It was an hour-long presentation, about 15 people, by the way, on the call, and exactly like 15, and I'm only one guy. And I knew from the beginning, when I was going into this call, I was the person with the least amount of knowledge on this product, talking to people that had the most amount of knowledge. Yep. So I came from the perspective of, let's present the demo, the presentation, and then with the demo, I'll walk through the situation, I'll go over everything at a high level, and then they shoot back at me. And they did. Like, they intentionally shot back at me. They're like, hey, does this work as a sim tool? How would this work in this case? And, you know, I was new to it, but then I also didn't lie throughout it. I would say I would get back to them, or I would elaborate more on the question and kind of do like a discovery to see if I can answer it. And then towards the end, the very next day, the hiring manager calls me and I was excited. I really thought I nailed it. I gave up so many nights for this, just for that one interview call. And then I get told, you know, the first question the manager asked me is how did you think you did? And as soon as he asked me that, I was like, oh, well, I don't think I got it. And so I tell him how I thought about it and how, you know, I don't do this on a daily basis. So I was a little nervous, and I don't think I had as much technical depth as an SE would be in this role, because it was for a senior role. And I had asked them too, I was like, what did you guys see in me for you guys to bring me in this far? And they said, you have all the right characteristics. You have the business acumen, they didn't think I was as technical as I needed to be for that role. And he had told me that I have the characteristics of an SE where I'm collaborative in nature. I ask for help. I'm willing to find out answers. If I don't know how to get the answer, I'm willing to reach out to people. And they said to me that they really liked my energy and passion, enthusiasm for this role, which is why they brought me this far. But from a technical depth, they said at the time they didn't have the bandwidth to create like a associate or an entry level SE role. They were looking for a senior, so that's why I didn't get it. And then I ended up finding out they were one of the customers that that came out to my site when I was a contractor working for the government, and I just found that was hilarious. And then I ended up meeting with them. No harm, no foul there. But those are one of the most crucial feedback sessions I've ever had, because the manager went out of his way for 45 minutes to tell me his journey, how he got in as an SE. He worked at a startup. He said, don't be afraid to take risks to go to a startup. But he told me at least like 5 times throughout that call, he's like, Raj, you are an SE. It's just that in this situation, we just don't have a role for you here. And if anything, they were ready to bring me in as a customer success person, but they said that I would be doing myself a disservice if I went that route. They're like, just keep trying, become more familiar with different types of technology, just practice and you'll get there. And I think I got the confirmation that although I got rejected and I didn't get into that role, but somebody saw value in me, and somebody told me that even though I couldn't get into their organization, I was an SD, and that's what kept me going. And when I did get a few offers and then I chose to go along with the company that I went with, I reached out to that guy and I thanked him. And I still, to this day, a couple times a year, I reach out to him. Or if I go to a conference and I know his company's there, I will ask them about him. And so I still keep it going. But it was some of the feedback I got was just I wasn't as technical enough. And I thought that was fair to say. But
Fair
I
and
thought that I brought
unfair.
it to the table.
I would say it's fair and unfair, for multiple reasons. Like, you're a technical person, right? You work in system engineer. You're technical. You're just not as technical in their product, right? You don't use their product every day. You don't know it the way they know it. But given a few months, you will know it. Now, the issue is you can do almost everything right and still not be the right fit, still not get the job, right? You did everything right. It's just that we were talking about luck earlier. You were unlucky in the fact that they don't have the bandwidth to teach you. But on the other hand, you were lucky that you ran into such a good manager that they're going out of their way to, even though they're declining your services today, they want you to know that you should keep going forward. Like, you're not the right fit for me, but you will be the right fit for somebody else. That's great. Like, not many people actually go through that. Not many people get that positive. Like, I've received feedback like, you don't know Linux. I'm like, all right, thank you. That was very useful.
That's a common one for a lot of SEs, including myself.
I don't use Linux every day. I start using Linux, I will learn it. It's not hard. I've designed networks, right? I've used Linux to debug stuff, but I don't use it every day, so I don't know every command by heart.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you received that feedback and that way, that's great. And I hope everybody gets treated that way. Not everybody does, unfortunately. And that's that luck factor. That's also what affects how long it takes for you to get a job, because you could have gotten a job within a month.
And I did ask the SE when I was interviewing with that company his journey, and he told me that he got in because of his colleague that works there. And the one thing that I wasn't successful this time when I was getting into this role that I'm in currently is that I came from a systems engineering role. I didn't really have any friends that were sales engineers that could refer me into their organizations. But I have to say, in this sport, networking is very crucial. I understand for people who might even be watching this that are engineers, it's kind of like binary. Either you know it or you don't during an interview. Like when you're going through a coding interview and stuff. With sales engineering, That is not the case all the time. Believe it or not, more times than not, from what I hear from my peers, you also need to know people, and if they put in a good word for you, chances are you have a easy, I'll say, you have a less cumbersome way throughout the interview process of getting in, and you might even have less steps in the interview process. Because I've heard from multiple people that when they knew a friend that was at a company and they were going in as an SE, they just spoke to two people and that was it. And they were just able to get in. Meanwhile, with me, it was like a fresh new slate every single time.
Yeah.
And I had to prove myself every time to get in. Meanwhile, when you have friends that are in this role or referrals, it might actually work in your factor, and it might make it a little bit beneficial.
Yeah. Well, so I tell everybody right now that resumes don't get you interviews. People get you interviews.
Absolutely, 100%.
And the fact of the matter is, when you, like, if you were referred by someone in there, if the SE that you were working with, if they went to bat for you and said, I will take them under my wing and teach them, you would have gotten the job. Right. And that's why connections matter.
100% they do. And I think it's an underrated discussion. And I'll tell you this, when I think about this too, and I remember I brought this up to you, when I first heard about sales engineering, I heard about all sorts of engineering jobs. How come even at college fairs, career fairs, I've never heard about sales engineering? There, and like you said, there's no prereq to get into it. I asked my coworkers about it. It's really not. Sometimes I think like being in a sales engineering organization is like being part of the Illuminati or something like that, because it is like a niche role. Very few people know about it, but once you explain to them what you do and some of the perks, everybody's invested in it. And like that's why I'm even glad to be on the podcast today to even share some information about that and some insight, because I feel like in the public sector world, in defense, like you don't hear these words like pre-sales and post-sales, but you are kind of doing a little bit of both. And so that's why I'm here.
That's pretty good. Trying to figure out if I can use the Illuminati of sales engineering as a title. Illuminati of engineering, but yeah, bad score. Anyways, it's a very good point. Not many people talk about that. I mean, right now they're starting to talk about it a lot more, and there are much more resources, which is amazing. Finally. But let me ask you this: you've been doing this for maybe 8 months now.
I think like I'm close to 10 months now.
Okay. How, like you mentioned earlier, you think it's the best job out there. What have been some of the struggles that you had to contend with?
So in theory, everything sounds great up until reality, when you're actually looking at it from the execution human standpoint perspective. So I think there were times where it gets challenging is this is a people sport. So the thing is I love working on a team. I get along with almost everybody. But the thing is sometimes because this involves dollars and cents aside from the engineering and building the relationship and tying technical aspects to the business aspect, when you're working on a team where some like your account managers, for example, some of them have different agendas based off the pressure they're facing from their side, right? And you being the SE, you might know all the technical stuff, how it relates to the customer, what's in the best interest for the customer, and you're relaying that to the account managers. But sometimes there's an ulterior motive that goes on, or there's disconnect. And so some of the things that are the ongoing struggles that I see on a daily basis is when you're in an organization, you're working with different personalities. And sometimes when you work with different personalities, that's where the challenge comes into place. And you're always working on a way to get on the same page as them. And so I think that some of the challenges I faced was, well, the technical stuff, it took me a few months to learn. So I don't really consider that a real challenge. That just comes with the job. I knew that hands down. It's really just getting a hold of your account managers and being on the same page with them, because I'm in an organization where I'm mapped to a couple of account managers. So I'm working with 3 or 4 different account managers. They have their own schedule. I have my schedule. Hey, Raj, I need you to get this ready. By the way, it's going to be tomorrow. Or, hey, we're meeting with them in a few hours. Do you think you can get something ready? And it's like, really? Really? And so I've been becoming more creative, but also at the same time attentive. And I've also become better with my time management skills and very effective with it. So, for instance, I make sure that I get the training I need because our project is constantly growing. So I set time on my calendar. And then what I do is I make sure I have my sync up meetings with my account managers throughout the week. But then also, this is a people sport, so it shouldn't come off as if like, oh, I'm going to meet John for a half hour on Thursday. Like, no, I'll just call him throughout the day and I'll just hash everything out. And so I've been becoming better at that so that I can alleviate some of the stresses I had to. Being one SE mapped to 3 or 4 account managers, that is always going to be a struggle. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can attest to it, and you've been an SE much longer than myself.
Yeah, I never had the problem of being mapped to 3 or 4. I've always been mapped to 1. So for me, it was easier in the sense that I only had to deal with one type of personality. Now, playing devil's advocate here, in your previous job, you have to work with other people as well, right?
Absolutely.
Why is it more difficult as a sales engineer than it is as a systems engineer, for example?
Because everybody has a different story. Every account manager that I work with has a set of customer groups. Every customer has a different story. So that means I am not doing a copy and paste here. I have to make sure as an SE that the discovery is done. I have to make sure that I know exactly where their pain points are. There's so much prep time that goes in behind to make sure that my account manager and I are in sync. So it's so resource intensive from that point of view. So you're working with different personalities, but then the other thing is that there's so much work that goes behind each customer because you're making sure that you give them a valuable experience. As an SE versus being a systems engineer in my past role was that I was at the lowest of the lowest totem pole with a bunch of engineers. Me as an SE today, when I go into a meeting with my account manager, I am talking to decision makers. So I have to be very mindful of the time. I have to make sure that I explain everything at a high level so that they can digest it and make a decision or have follow-up meetings for us to continue the conversation going. And there's no copy and paste button for that. The product that we have, yeah, we have a bunch of products, but the thing is the prep time, making sure that we're making useful effort out of that decision maker's time. There's a lot that goes on into this. There just absolutely is a lot.
I'm gonna play. I played devil's advocate earlier. Now I'm gonna play the opposite side. I agree with everything you said. I just want to highlight, like, when you were a systems engineer, you were part of a team, right? But you were also, but you worked as an individual more than as a team. Like, you had your own tasks to do. You didn't have to worry about somebody else, right? No one was dependent as much on your task as you. Like, you needed to complete your job. And a lot of engineering, like when I was a network design engineer, I had my own customers. I designed the networks for them. Sure, I had to work with the customers, but I didn't have any other teammates that are trying to vie for my attention, trying to pull me off my project, trying to make me to do something else. No, this is my project. I might have more projects, but they're mine. I can do them at my own time. But as a sales engineer, you were saying, people are trying to fight for your time. Not only that, like, you have the account manager is not hitting quota. Now that person's stressed, and they're pulling you on all sorts of different useless meetings. Or, like I mentioned in the previous video, like, you got a call within 30 seconds, you got an email within 30 seconds, you get a call from the account manager. Oh, did you answer that guy's question? We have a deal pending, right? So it's a very different, like, although you're part of a team in most different jobs, when you're a sales engineer, it's a different kind of team. It's a team where people might have different priorities. The priority should be the customer, right? But when your job is on the line, when you're feeding your family is on the line, although that might be an exaggeration, most salespeople do enough that they can feed their family twice. So but it's a high stress job, like, because you might be working today, you not hit quota, you might not be working tomorrow because you didn't hit quota. So I think that adds a lot of friction. And you have account manager A looking for your time, account manager B looking for your time, completely different goals, and each of them think they're more important than the other for their thing. And they're fighting for you. And now you have to kind of figure out, how do I not piss both of them off at the same time? So
That's a good juggling act that I'm part of, and that's been like that for probably 6 to 7 months. But I talked to my SE manager about it too, and my coworkers for tips on how to go along with that, so that things are smooth sailing. But I always let my account managers know, like, in full transparency, like, hey, this guy has this much going on, this guy has that much going on, you only have this much going on, so this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Unless we need other people involved. And I don't think it's ever gotten to that point, but transparency matters and communication matters. I don't think, if you tell someone from the beginning, hey, this is the status, this is where I'm at, you introduce yourself, they introduce themselves to you, and you tell them what's going on, like, I'm pretty sure people will start understanding the landscape of how things run in your organization. And hopefully it's not like overlooked, but it probably will later down the line. But like, if you address things in the beginning, you'll probably have less problems going down the line.
So I mentioned earlier that I've never had that where I had to support multiple SEs. I had that for maybe 2 months, like when I came back from paternity leave. And what I ended up doing is I didn't tell them no. I just tell them my calendar, check my calendar. So I put it on an inanimate object, like, oh, you want to book me? Well, check my calendar. And they sent me an invitation without asking me, and it's already have a meeting there. Sorry, my calendar was already full. Like, I'm not saying no, it's my calendar that's saying no. Right? Might work, might not work. It worked for me for a few months.
Creative. I didn't think about that, but
well, yeah,
I mean,
it's like, I'm not saying no. I'm not the bad guy. It's my calendar. Go look at my calendar, find a spot, and add me to the meeting.
I think most of my account managers realize how busy SEs are, because some of them were SEs. But when your account manager has always been an account manager,
Yeah.
sometimes it's overlooked. And it's like, I need you all the time. And it's like, hold on, wait a minute. And then you also have to let your account managers know that, like, when you're doing I love when you go into a meeting with an account manager and they schedule it for an hour, they talk for 2 minutes, and then it's all on you all of a sudden to do. And it's like, hold on, wait a second. What happened to you doing the pitch? Why am I doing the pitch and the demo? Why am I going over the entire story? You got to take up your part too. And I think that those are some of the big pet peeves I had in the beginning, but then all it did was I just had to remind my account managers that, hey, this is how we need to do it. This is both of us.
Yeah, I mean, communication. Just keep talking to them. If you stop talking to them and you start getting frustrated, it's going to go downhill pretty quickly. And I've had people where they had the opposite experience from you, where they're supposed to come in and have a 45-minute demo. The salesperson talks for 45 minutes, and now they only have 15 to do the demo. So, and for salespeople who were previously sales engineers, I find when they switch from sales engineering to sales, they're good for the first couple of years, and then they switch, they forget, or they understand now that we're under too much pressure. And here's the thing about salespeople: they might know you're gonna say no, but they have to ask anyways. They have to try. Right? It's not like they already know that you're probably gonna say no, but they have to try it, because otherwise they might lose the deal. So they're gonna try it and put it on you to say no. So, it's time to move on to the not so fire on. You might have heard these questions before, you might not have, but these are the same 4 questions I ask almost every guest. But before I get there, is there something you want to talk about that I didn't ask you
about? I guess I did want to ask you for, like, let me ask you this. Like, so I work with public sector, right? So because I work with public sector, um, there's one thing I realized. I work in longer sales cycles versus the commercial, which is shorter. Um, what are I don't know if you've been in similar positions where you had to work on both a short or a long-term sales cycle. How would you explain to somebody who's interested in being a sales engineer or someone who just started as a sales engineer the difference? Because I feel like there are two types of SEs, ones that work in shorter ones and one in longer. And I've only been in the longer one,
Yeah.
so I definitely don't know how the shorter ones are.
The difference, well, you said it, it's much slower. The thing is, like, the delayed gratification thing, you really have to embrace it when it comes to the public sector, because you might be working on an opportunity you started in 2020, it won't close till 2023, right, or 2022. So, but you might have joined the company in 2020, and some of the opportunities that they've been working on since 2018 are going to close in 2020, right? So, in theory, if the salesperson is good and they fill the pipe and they're good for 2 years, you should have, although you're not currently working on the deal as much, deals should close. And the big difference is, well, we can talk about small medium business. Let's say small medium business, that it's transactional. It's closes within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? So you're always hopping from one call to the next doing demos. Then you have like medium enterprise. Sales cycle is a bit longer, and now you're continuously working, but you're hopping from one medium enterprise to another medium enterprise to another. And then you have big enterprises, where SEs have these named accounts. They're not out there looking for new customers all the time. And now the job is shifting from doing demos and discovery all the time to building relationships and doing post sales and making sure that the customer is happy, continuously trying to understand where they're going, become a consultant, if you will. And then you have the government, where it just takes forever, but you build those relationships, and a lot of decisions are made on relationships. As far as I can see, you have to play a lot of games in terms of like having three different vendors trying to provide the same, like, answer the RFPs before they answer, or before they pick one. It's a lot more bureaucratic, a lot more paperwork, a lot more games that you have to play with. And like, we have something in Canada where, and I don't sell to the government anymore, but I used to, where if a company wants to sell to the government in Canada, they have to promise to provide the lowest rates to any customer than any customer. So no one sells to the government directly. Everyone has to go through resellers.
Yeah.
Right. And now you're jumping through hoops. Now you have to, like, and if you find a reseller that has like native ties, they go through faster. Right. So all these games of bureaucracy, it's less about merit, it's not less about how well the product is, and it's more about bureaucracy and how you can bypass that. That's how I find it. What do you think? You work more there.
I felt like I'm chuckling a little bit because I kind of realized that on my end too. It's very similar to what you're saying, and that's why I did want to ask too, because I feel like there's a lot of people in all sorts of industries, and like I could definitely vouch for the defense industry. You'll be on a longer sales cycle, but like when you're looking at a tech company, or you're looking at any company that's selling to the government or private sector, whatever you name it, there's always a sales engineer behind that tech product. And that's why I definitely want to share that with other folks that might be watching this. And then also, when you're a systems engineer working for either a big defense company or just with the government, whatever the case may be, all those roles that you're in are prereqs, in my opinion, that would allow you to be a pre-sales engineer too. And that's something that I feel like it's not mentioned, and I definitely want to mention that out there. So when you're being a project manager, or you're being a project engineer, or some sort of security guy from a cybersecurity standpoint, and you work with the customer on a daily basis, and you're also working with the finance folks to get the right scope of work in place with the dollars and cents and stuff. That's all pre-sales too. It's just that it's not called that. And sometimes people are always looking for that opportunity where they could be technical, also business oriented in together, and then also having the skill set to be able to understand both concepts and then relate to a decision maker. And there's definitely opportunities out there.
I would frame it a bit differently, and I think it would give an advantage to someone. You're not an employee who's doing stuff, and some of it is pre-sales. You're in the buyer cycle. You understand what the buyer wants, what the buyer process is, right? Which gives you an edge over other SEs who have no idea how that is. Right? You understand, we created this RFP, this is what they're looking for. So when you go to the customer side, to the sales side, you know how to fill it up, right? So all this should give you an edge over somebody else. But yeah, like, so basically, if I understand correctly, you're advising whoever's working for the government in one of these roles that you mentioned, if they're bored, if they're unhappy, if they're looking for a new challenge, they should look at sales engineering.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I think the world's largest customer or purchaser is the defense industry, in particular the DoD. So you don't have to worry too much about like the whole sales side of it. Like, will I hit my quota, this or that? Like the government buys a lot, so don't worry about that part.
Okay, good to know. All right, man. So let's move on to the not so fire round. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You mentioned that this is the best job and everybody should do it. Why do you love sales engineering?
Because I got stuck in a role or a series of roles where it got too repetitive. The cycle was the same. I was working on legacy products, and I thought I could do a better job than where I was at, and I could have came up with better requirements from an engineering standpoint that would have put the position of the guy who was in my shoes in a better place, aka just like old operating systems that are outdated and antiquated. And I had to work on that. And when I told them what the problems were and what I couldn't do, and I came up with solutions out, it was just like, just do what we told you to do. And so that's why I wanted to leave the role I was in. Now, the reason why I really like it is because I like change. I like new challenges. Every day is a new challenge. Not a single day is the same day. So tomorrow's going to be a different day. I have multiple account managers I work with. I have customers in all sorts of different realms of government. There's just so much change that's occurring, and I like to learn. And I think I'm a quick learner as well, too. So I embrace the challenge. There's days where I'm working 10, 12, even more hours, and the clock goes by, but I'm so invested in the role that I'm in. I love it. And the people I work with, I have to say, like, some of the account manager I work with, like, they're great people. Even outside of work, when we're traveling to conferences and such, and they have their stories, like, it's a great place to be in. And you get the best of both worlds. Like, yeah, you get to work from home, you get to travel, go to events, you get to meet your clients in person. Like, I think it's like a dream job for me. It's always different. Like, I don't go see the same customer every quarter or every month. Like, I have a bunch of customers I have to meet, and every interaction is new. So every interaction, I learn from it, and then I become better for the next interaction. And so I love that part.
I used to travel like once a quarter or once every 2 quarters with my account manager, and that was some of the funnest times I've had on the job. Just hanging out with, if you enjoy the account manager. I've had account managers I did not enjoy, and I hated being around them. But the ones that were fun, we end up on the same place. It's nice. I'll put it that way. All right, question number two. That's French. If you didn't know, what would you consider is your superpower?
My superpower would probably be being emotionally intelligent and recognizing my surroundings and the way people present themselves and the state they're in. And I feel like that is what allows me to be successful in my everyday life. So I think that is my superpower.
Nice. Okay, if I were to ask your manager what is your superpower, what would they answer?
I don't know. So they would probably bash me. I don't know. We have that funny banter, so I don't know what they would say, but I think they would say that my superpower is probably just like the enthusiasm and passion that I bring to the table. So yeah, or my collaborative nature. I think that's what they would say.
Okay, good. That's called self-awareness. Number 3, is there a resource you recommend for SEs beginning their journey?
YouTube. That's what I would say. I've read enough books, but I just feel like some of them are outdated. Or once you become an SE, it's good to look back at that to see if you can do some comparisons and all sorts of stuff. So the way I would say to go about your journey is go on YouTube. There's plenty of people like yourself. Tech is the New Black, Simone Bees. Like I watch everybody, and now they're all even going on Instagram and they're creating reels that are like 30 seconds long or 15 seconds. Like there's so much out there, and I like the videos. The content is so much better. It's better than reading through a dry book from the past. No offense to any of the authors. It's just there's so many different ways, and podcasts like yours. Like when I first started out, like even though I had limited time while I was going through everything else with my career, applying, work life balance, like I still made the time to just press play on YouTube while I was at the gym or driving somewhere. And I think YouTube is a great resource for learning. It's free. There's just so much going on. And then obviously outside of that, like you have your LinkedIn's of the world and all sorts of stuff. But I would say YouTube.
Nice. All right, we'll take that. All right, last question of the not so fire on Raj. Is there a habit you're working on today to improve in your personal or professional life?
A habit that I'm working on is saying no because I feel like I'm always trying to do a lot, and it's not to I wouldn't say it's to like impress my account managers or my coworkers, but I'm genuinely excited to work on the things. And sometimes I just gotta let myself know I'm not Superman. I can't do 20 things at once. And there's times where I just have to say no, I can't do it. And I think self-awareness is probably one thing that I could work on in terms of saying no. But yeah, I would say that that's the one habit I'm getting used to saying. You would be surprised. You would think that as an SE, I already say no, but it's more like I'll get to it. So I think I'm working on my priority ranking.
Okay. Good, man. Good. Well, Raj, thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed our conversation as usual. If people want to reach out and connect with you, where can they do that?
So they could definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. But then also, since I'm part of your community at We the Sales Engineers, they can definitely reach out to you and get in touch with me as well too. And there's probably plenty of people that I know that would be interested. So feel free to reach out. I'll do my best to get back to you. But yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj, for coming on, and thank you for listening. I really appreciate you being here and going through that hour. So again, as you can tell, Raj loves being an SE. There's a lot of topics we didn't cover. We didn't cover the things that he had learned in details. We didn't cover the things that he struggled with in details. But the fact that he still loves it after almost a year of doing it, or maybe a little bit less, but still doing it for a while, struggling to get the job and then excelling at it or doing very well at it. It's a good job. Sales engineering is a great job. In my humble opinion, I am biased. So take that with a grain of salt. But if you're looking for help, if sales engineering is something you want to do, you're interested in doing, contact me. I do have a service. I do coaching, basically. I help people achieve their goals, and the skills that I teach can help you with any job. I focus on sales engineering, but if you want to move out of sales engineering at some point, the skills that you learn with me will continue to help you afterwards, throughout your life, throughout your career. So yeah, connect with me. go on the website, book some time with me. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well to book some time with me. I'll also leave a link on the YouTube video description to book some time with me if you choose it, if you need help. So that's it for me. With that, I'm signing off.